Thinking about buying a home in Columbus, Ohio, buying a home does not have to be difficult if you have the correct roadmap in order to make that happen for a smooth transaction. Today, I'm breaking down the step-by-step process of buying a new home. This is your first time to the channel. Please like, subscribe, tap the bell for notifications. Hi, my name is Billy Fristow, and I'm a realtor here in Columbus, Ohio. And this is the Living in North Columbus YouTube channel. We get calls every day from people just like you looking to make a move to Columbus. So I'd love to help you. Whether you're moving in 9 or 90 days, reach out, give me a call, shoot me a text, email me. I'd love to help you make that smooth transition to Columbus. And as always, just call Billy. So step one in the home buying process, especially here in Ohio, is to get pre-approved with a lender. This tells you, how much home you can afford. It shows sellers that you're serious. In this competitive market, having a pre-approval isn't optional. You don't want to make an offer without that pre-approval, and most sellers probably will not even respond if you don't have that. They want to know that you're qualified enough to purchase their house so we don't get too far down the line and financing falls through. Although it happens, financing doesn't fall through because of different, circumstances and, extenuating circumstances that happen during the process. But overall, you want to get a pre-approval. There's a pre-approval and then there's a pre-qualification. Pre-qualification kind of sets your budget. It lets you know how much home you can afford. Pre-approval is there has been some diving in by the lender. They know you can afford that amount. So a pre-approval is stronger than a pre-qualification. You want to come to the table with a pre-approval, with your offer ready to go. The differences between pre-approval and pre-qualification. Pre-qual is an estimate. Pre-approval is a commitment that the lender is already committed to helping you get the financing that you need for that home. So basically, with a pre-qual, you're budgeting. With pre-approval, you're ready to go. Another, good thing that we're talking about getting pre-qual is, pre-approved for your loan is, try to work with a local lender who knows the area. Obviously, if you have a bank that you've been working with, definitely reach out to them. But, it's always good to have a local lender that knows the area, knows the market. And, in case something were to happen, they're close. You can, contact them, whether you need to meet them face to face or, stop into their office. But like I said, local lender. And I have a few of them that I use here in the Columbus market. So again, if you're looking to buy, reach out to me. Another thing is use a local lender. It's not mandatory, but it could be helpful in case, something were to happen. So let's move on. Let's kind of see what your criteria is. So step two, in the buying process is after you've gotten pre-qualified, pre-approvals going and you're, all right, we're ready to do this. I think, and you've talked to your agent and, your lender, obviously, you and I have a conversation about, your criteria, what you're looking for, number of beds, numbers of bathrooms, square footage, if you have 2 or 3 kids, whether you want them to all have their own room or are 2 of them going to share a room. So all these things are important, when deciding what kind of house you want, how much house you want, because the fun part is looking for houses. But, when you're talking about criteria, you need to know, how big, how many beds, how big you want your yard to be, what areas you want. Do you want a big yard, small yard? Do you want, a certain school district? Because, not all school districts are made equally. So, if education's a huge part of your decision, let's go. I can educate you on some great school districts here in the Columbus, Ohio market. Go from there. There's a lot of factors that factor into where you want to live, how you want to live, and the areas you want to live. Is it convenient? Is it close to stuff that you like to do or not? So, that would be the second step in the home buying process. Pre-qual, get the criteria, what you're looking for. So after we figure out, where you want to live, the kind of home that you want, now's the fun part, house hunting. So when it comes to house hunting, I'm here to tour the houses with you, whether in person or virtually. I've done both. I've helped people move from out of state a lot. I've helped people move within the state and within the city, or the city to another city in Ohio. So that's the fun part, is looking at homes. Most buyers look at, 4 to 8 homes before they put an offer in on one they really like. Sometimes just the sheer speed in which you need to find something may reduce that number to, we have 2 houses we want to see, and this is it, boom, boom. So, it just depends, or more, if none of these houses that we're looking at, suit you. And that happens also, where you had to look at 10 plus houses. You don't want to broaden your horizons too much, because then you start swirling in your head. But, usually 4, to 8 houses you look at will make an offer. My job's to help you tour that house, whether, like I said, in person, virtually if you're not in town, and to help you spot red flags that maybe you aren't seeing when you're walking through the house, maybe with the mechanicals, or maybe, oh, look, there's a crack on the ceiling, which, maybe the house is settling. Let's go down the basement, check the foundation. But all that stuff is also going to come up in inspections and whatnot. So after we're putting in offers, but we're looking at houses now. We're kind of, trying to narrow down which house is the best fit for you, trying to decide. So, step 3 is the fun part, looking at houses. Let's move on to the next step. So after we're, touring homes and you find one that you like, time to write that offer. We're going to write that offer. We're going to discuss what's in your best interest, and that is price, any contingencies, appraisal, inspections, all that kind of stuff, and then also, what's your closing timeline? When would you like to close? What kind of possession? Do you need to move in quickly, or are you allowing them to move out? Give them, a couple weeks to move out, or a week, or, whatever the timeline is. But then we'll discuss, what's in your best interest. In case there are multiple offers, we will handle your best interest. But maybe we want to have a very competitive offer, that gets ours accepted. So if you can move into, your dream house, or the house you really want. So, making the offer is super important. And we need to be on the same page with, how we're going about writing that offer, and make it as competitive as we can. I'll do a market analysis to see, really what is the price of this house, and how much should you pay for it, based on what's selling in the area, comps that have sold recently, in the past 3 months, maybe past 6 months. Those are the kinds of things we'll do when we're writing an offer is, we'll talk, discuss, and try to get everything, situated in your best interest to make the best competitive offer that we can, moving forward to try to get you to the closing table. So the next step after the offer is accepted. Very important. Your offer has to be accepted, and then we'll get into inspections, appraisal. Inspections, we usually have a time frame in order to get inspections done in a timely manner. You don't really want to wait on inspections. You want to get it done so early, if there is anything wrong. So how it'll work, the inspector will go out, inspect the whole property depending on what you want inspected. Do you want a termite inspection? Do you want, obviously you're going to do a house foundation, different inspections you can do. The inspector's going to come out, do the inspection, and either you or myself will meet them at the house, and he'll kind of go over the inspection report and let you know what was, critical, what's not really critical, and what's fine with the house. So, he's going to look at, the roof, is the roof okay? Are there leaks that he can see, or, foundation issues? Does he see cracks in the foundation in the basement? Like the age of the mechanicals, which would be your furnace, AC, water heater, plumbing. He's going to make sure, that the water pressure is good and suitable for that house. Electrical, he's going to make sure the outlets are working, so that, that kind of stuff. He's going to check all those critical things, mechanicals being the, one of the biggest, and, roof, foundation issues. So he's going to check all those things. Then we're going to get the inspection report back. And then, when we get it back, we're going to look at all the issues on there, and I like to tell clients, let's not get crazy on stuff that can be easily fixed, like a light cover, or, you don't like paint, or, obviously it has to come up in the inspection report. You pretty much, anything that's a safety issue or is a major mechanical issue is something we want to address with the seller, before we move forward. So that's the, inspection period. The remedy period is now where we're, okay, let's see if there's any critical issues with this inspection. And then we can go back to the seller and say, hey, we think these things need to be fixed before we move forward. We'll negotiate and, try to come up with an amicable solution where everyone's happy, and we can try to move forward with the closing for you. So, we're getting inspection, we're getting, remedies, if anything needs to be remedied. After we're through that, everything is good to go. An appraiser will come out, appraise the home, what it's worth. And if the value is there for what you offered, we're good. If the value comes in lower, maybe we'll renegotiate a price. And if the value comes in higher, I guess that's a bonus. There's also different things where people will add an appraisal gap to the home. So you really want the home, and you're offering more than what the list price is, just in order to get the home. You're going to want to put an appraisal gap in that contract as well. So an appraisal gap will help you, I guess, it will ensure that if the house closes or appraises for less than the list price, then you would be willing to bring that extra amount, to the closing. So that's what an appraisal gap. So it kind of protects the seller from a short appraisal, and kind of helps to ensure that you get the property based on, your offer, if it's more than what the list price is. If you have any questions on that, or you didn't understand how I explained it, please, reach out, drop a note in the comments. Hey, I didn't quite get that, and I can definitely try to explain it better for you. But, like I said, we're doing inspections, remedies, appraisals, and as soon as all the appraisal stuff and inspections are done and everyone's agreed to, any remedies, or, if there's an appraisal issue or not, and everything is signed off on appraisals and inspections, boom, these are offer folders, that are been filled out, whatnot, making sure everything is, situated, as things come in, as we do the inspection, as we, the appraisal comes in and we're good with value. So, there's a checklist that we need to follow, and try to stay streamlined, organized, in order to best help you. So we're almost homeowners. So after, everything's signed off, we're good to go. The best 3 words in real estate to hear are clear to close. So that means the lender has been fully approved. We have clear to close, and we're ready to close. But before we hit the closing table, we're going to do a final walkthrough a couple days before closing, just to make sure everything is still intact and as it was when we saw the house and we were in contract. So that means, if you said, I need this appliance, this appliance, this appliance, we're going to make sure that's all there. There's not a huge gash in the wall. There's not crazy, stuff. But, there's going to be normal wear and tear, like they move their furniture from the carpet and there's a spot where the couch was. That's, normal. But like I said, we're going to do a walkthrough, make sure everything's intact a couple days before close, and then we're going to hit the closing table. So when we hit the closing table, we're going to sign all the paperwork. Depending on when your possession is, you're either going to get keys at the closing table, or keys will be arranged, through myself and the other agent, and we'll get you the keys. And guess what? You're a homeowner. It's time to move in. So I guess after you're a homeowner, keys and everything, here's a couple tips while you're in the process of buying your home. Don't go opening up credit cards, and I hope your lender will tell you that, but I, as your agent, will tell you that. Don't go opening up any other credit cards or loans or anything else while you're in this process, and definitely work with a local expert, and that's where I come in. In the Columbus market, I can help you get what you want. So again, if you're looking to move to Columbus, or you already live here and you're looking to, make that move and that transition, please reach out, call me, text me, email me. Love to help you make that smooth transition to Columbus, or if you're coming from out of state, or another area of Columbus if you already live here and you know how great Columbus is already. So, like I said, just call Billy, and I hope to see you around town.